In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Serfas TSL-LT1000 light and also the T1000. The T1000 is no longer made, and there were just a few features on the battery pack that are no longer available on the LT1000, but I'll point out those features when I do this review. The light comes in a case, which is pretty nice. It's got a zippered enclosure, and it's a nice case, but it does get real dirty. And I assume the LT1000 will come with the same case. This is the light head, and the light head is actually a lot more compact than I thought it was when I first saw it in pictures. And when I ordered this from my bike shop, I was really pleased with how compact the light head is. It's got two LED lights on the front, and I'm going to show it mounted on my helmet because this makes a really good helmet mount. When I mountain bike, I use a helmet mounted light. When I'm on dirt roads on my cyclocross bike, I will just mount it on my handlebars, and I'll show both of those applications. So this is the battery, and I said that the T1000, which is no longer made, has a few features. The main one is it actually has an LED light, so you can put this on the back of a seat post and it becomes a tail light, and it's really bright. So you could tap this button, it'll come on even though it's not, the light is not plugged into it. So it's got 3 levels of brightness of the solid LED, and again, this is really, really bright. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. And then if you push it again, it goes into a flash mode, and push it again, it'll go into a brighter flash mode. Push it again, it'll go off. That's the difference with the T1000. The new one does not have that. Also, it's got a USB port here, and I don't think the LT1000 has this, but you can actually plug in a cell phone or something to charge it by just plugging it in here into the USB. This is where the cord would go into, and you've got a short cord on the light, so you could plug it right into here like this if you were going to mount it on your handlebars. So the battery pack obviously needs to be pretty close. Or it's got the long cord, and if you wanted to mount this as a helmet mount or put the battery pack further back on your bike, for example the seat post, then you would use the longer cord and plugging in the same way and then plugging in the light here. So it's a pretty long cord. In fact, when I put it, I usually mount this on the back of my top tube and then just wrap the cord around. Sometimes I'll mount it up on the handlebar and just use the short cord, but I use the long cord most of the time. Also, here's the charger, just plain charging. I'll show it charging up so you can see the light on it. But it's got this remote switch, which I think is really cool. Both the T1000 and LT1000 come with this. And what this does is it's got a little kind of rubber port here, and you can plug the remote switch in. So you could put this right next to your thumb on the handlebars, and that way you don't have to take your hands off the handlebars to change the light. So let me show I'm not going to point it right at the camera because it's super, super bright, but let me turn it on here. So when I tap this top button once, it goes into the brightest mode, and I'm going to show this on the trail and on a road, and I've got some video footage at the end of this video that shows me riding with the light so you can get an idea of what it looks like. So I can tap this again, it'll go dimmer one more time, and then it'll go down to the 4th lowest setting. And I'm going to show this again on a trail. Tap it again, it goes back to the brightest setting. Also, I can do the same thing with the remote. Now if you hold this down for 1 second, it'll go off. Now if I've got the light on and I hold it down for 2 seconds, it'll go into a flash mode. So if you were commuting in dusk hours and don't really need the light but just want to be seen, you could do the flash mode. If I hold it down for a second, it'll go off. The light has these cooling fins because LED lights that are really bright can get pretty hot. And so these cooling fins kind of allow the air to pass over and cool off the light. The light will go into a less bright mode if it starts to get too hot. And then once you start moving again or it cools off, it'll go back into your full brightness, whatever setting you had it on before. The LED lights, you don't want to stop and run the light without moving. This is a light that you need air passing over. If not, you can decrease the lifespan of the light if it overheats a lot. Also included is the mount, and this is the bracket that would go on your handlebar, and it's got these grooves here, and you would take this rubber part, put it in the slots. I usually run it on the largest setting on my handlebars. So you would put those pins in, and then you would put the rubber part around your handlebar, loop it here, and I'll show this on my bike, and then you just pull that up and it locks on. I am a fan of the O-ring type style, and the lights that have an O-ring that would just hook onto a little hook at the front around the handlebar and put the O-ring on the other side. Those are really quick, but this is not too bad. When you slide this in, so that if you have that bracket on your bike, you would slide the light head in. I'm going to go ahead and unplug the remote switch here, and then it would lock into the bracket. So it's kind of hard to get out. So you really have to push down this mechanism here and really kind of wiggle it out. It's really tight. And so that's why I said I'm a kind of a fan of the O-ring style, because I will switch this back and forth between helmet and the bracket, and you saw how hard it was to get out. Also, if you want to put it in the case, you really have to take the light off the bracket to put it back in the case for storing it or transporting it. This is the helmet mount, and again, I'll show this in a minute on my helmet, but it's kind of the same thing. You would just slide this in for the helmet mount, and it straps on your helmet. The run times on this light is stated by Serfas, and this is for the LT1000. And again, I want to focus on that since that's the one that's still produced. At 1,000 lumens, which is obviously the brightest setting, it says you get 1 hour and 40 minutes. The next highest setting, the 1,000 lumen settings they call overdrive. The next setting they call high, and that's 650 lumens, and they say you get 2.5 hours of burn time. The next one down they call medium, that's 450 lumens, and that you would get 3 hours and 45 minutes. And on low, which is 230 lumens, you would get 8.5 hours of burn time. And they say you get 7 hours if you were to go on the flash mode. And to charge this light, you would plug the charger into the same port on the battery pack as the light plugs into, and then you would just plug it into the wall, and there's a light on the charger, and this light will be red until it gets to full charge, and then it would go green. So I've got the light mounted on my helmet, and mounting a light on the helmet can be trial and error to find exactly the best place to put it. You can mount this one more towards the front. Once it's on the helmet, it's got this screw here, so you can tilt this back or forward depending on where you have it placed on your helmet. I like mounting the light a little bit more on top of the helmet because it doesn't put the light too far forward and weight your helmet down. So this is about the placement that I would do. The strap is not very long, so I could not use the outside vents. I would have to use the middle ones here if I put it more towards the front, which actually makes the light a little bit too unstable, which is another reason I like running this one more on top of the helmet. And speaking of weight, Serfas says the light and the battery pack weighs 253 grams. This is a pretty light head unit. And again, I don't find that it gives very much weight to the helmet at all. So let me go ahead and just take it off the helmet so you can see how the strap goes. So it's got kind of a, it's fixed here, and you would just run it under one of the vents back up through, and then it's got Velcro to fasten on the helmet. So again, this is probably one of the best helmet mounts that I've used before. Some of the other ones that I've used either puts the light too far off the helmet or it's a little bit flimsy. This one is pretty secure. It doesn't move around a whole lot. And some of the ones I've used, the straps have been really long and I had to cut them. But this one, it could be a tad longer, kind of giving you the option of cutting it if you wanted to use more outside vents. But you know, it's not bad, and I think pretty much any helmet that has vents like this, you're going to be able to find a good place to put it. And so to mount it on the handlebar, I've got the rubber piece below. So this top piece that mounts the light, I would just put the pins in these little slots here. And again, for this handlebar, I used the widest setting. And then on the back side, you would just hook this, bring this little lever up, and it locks into place. Even though it's not quite as quick as the O-ring mechanism type that I mentioned before, it is very, very secure. And you can get this thing pretty tight, and it's a really secure system. And to mount the battery pack, I'm just going to show you how I mount it on the top tube. So you just run the strap through here, put it on, strap goes through the buckle, and you can get this pretty tight. So it's got a lot of strap. So you may want to cut that down so it doesn't hit your leg. I think sometimes I'll just kind of tuck it down or something like that so it doesn't hit my leg. But again, that's pretty secure, and I could mount it up closer to the handlebar and only run the short cord if I wanted to. And this is how the light looks on the bike. Light head and the mounting bracket and the battery up closer to the handlebars on the top tube, so that I just have to run the short cord. And if you mount it on the top tube, this is probably the way that most of you would run it, unless you were able to find the older T1000 and wanted to use the battery pack as a tail light and put it on the seat post. Then you would run the longer cord and probably just wrap it around the top tube to keep it tight and up to the light head. So now let me show you some video of the light in action. So this is with the light on full bright, down one level, down one more, and down to the lowest setting. And if I hit it one more time, it goes back up to the brightest setting. Now I'm going to hold it down for 1 second, goes off, and then comes into the blinking mode. So not that you would ever use this on a trail, but that's what it would look like. I'm going to hold it down again, it'll go off, and then come back on to the brightest setting. So again, high, next one down, next one down, next one down, and then back up to the bright setting. This is what it looks like when you get to low battery. It'll just start blinking red. All right, I'm out on the trail and it's getting dark fast, but I figured I'd give the plus and minuses of this light while I'm actually out riding. Let me start with the negatives. The only real negative I can say about this light, and it's really not a big deal, but the mounting bracket is really tight. So whether it's the head helmet light mount or the handlebar mount, it's hard to get the light in and out, and you saw that earlier in the video. That's the only real negative. The positives, there's quite a few on this light. One, it's light. In other words, it doesn't weigh very much, which makes for a really good helmet mount. And the construction is really good. I feel like it's made really well. Both the battery and the light is made well. The buttons operate very easily. They're pretty intuitive. Having the remote switch is a huge benefit, a huge plus. You know, it's just a great light. And let me say, I do prefer the style where the battery is separate, especially for a helmet mount. If you want a bright light, which this one is plenty bright, and you want one with pretty good burn time, it's probably best to have the battery separate because the light unit just gets too big, especially for a helmet mount. So those are my plus and minuses of this light. It is one that I would recommend. I've used several lights over the years, Night Rider, Bike Ray, and this has been one of my favorite lights. So definitely one that I would recommend to you guys. So that will wrap it up for the review of the Serfas TSL-LT1000 and T1000 light. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If this video is helpful for you, please leave it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.